You've been programmed to be prey. You wake up to a startling noise, check your phone, and are bombarded with notifications, news, and girls doing stupid dances. You do the same morning routine you do every day on autopilot as your mind's stressing about the day ahead or thinking about yesterday, what went wrong, what went good. When interacting with others, it often feels like you're not behaving the way you should be. You're always thinking to yourself, I shouldn't have said that. At some point, you do that one bad habit you're trying not to do anymore, but for some reason it happened again. You're just stuck there asking yourself, why did I do that? When it's time to be productive, all it really is flooding your bloodstream with stimulants like coffee, nicotine, or the really overrated white monster, and just overwhelming yourself with to-do lists, emails, educational YouTube videos until the stress builds up and finally you do some kind of action you could say was productive. But worst of all, it feels like life is just happening to you. Like no matter what you do, you just can't quite get ahead. And it's not even your fault, because the modern world has hijacked our brain and our biology in a way that makes us constantly in this state of reactivity. Reactivity is a state of both mind and body that the majority of the population is pretty much permanently stuck in. And in this state, you have higher sustained levels of things like adrenaline and cortisol, always in this kind of stressed out fight or flight state, which consequently causes you to always be in a, like I said, reactive state where you're in this kind of autopilot reacting to external stimuli, and you never truly get to really take control over your outputs and your actions in life. It may feel like you are, because I picked up this candle and set it back down. I opened the app on my phone. I said those words to that girl, but these things happen before the true you, your conscious mind, even has a say or has power to make a decision on whether that's the right thing to do or not. And when you're like this, your brain waves are in a frequency known as beta. This is typically associated with higher stress, overthinking, being overly analytical, and this outward projection of our attention, which where attention goes, energy flows, meaning we are literally just projecting all of our energy out all over the place, just spewing our load of energy everywhere. And probably the darkest part about this is that the world is constantly exploiting us for being in this state. Most of the media you see on TV and online, most politicians trying to sway you to think and vote a certain way, most businesses trying to sell you their thing so they can take your money, need you to be in a reactive state, because if they control the external stimulus, that means they can control you. For the majority of my life, I was in this state. I was in constant autopilot. In high school, I had a really high social anxiety, which means I was always in this heightened state of overthinking every word I said, overthinking everything that was done or said to me by my classmates. I was chronically online watching every single YouTube video, doom scrolling Twitter, and just flooding my brain with these stimuli that is then informing all these random thoughts I have. I'm mad about these politics. I'm depressed because this is happening in the world. But even after graduating high school and going into the real world where I had to socialize with people and work with people and do all these things, I almost exploited this system. For example, let's say I'm about to go meet up with some friends or acquaintances at the gym. I would consume a ridiculous amount of caffeine because I knew that caffeine would make me highly anxious and I would have so much anxiety, so much energy that I would talk, and it would make me seem more talkative and more positive because I'm just spewing out all this energy. I would do something very similar for my work when it was time to create content. I would overload on stimulus, overload on information online, and then try to record videos or write videos or edit videos. When what was actually happening was this hyper-reactivity was actually blocking my brain's ability to enter flow state and true creativity, which means my work wasn't even nearly as good as it could have been. I just wasn't operating at my true potential. And it wasn't until a couple years in that I started to get this feeling that I didn't really know who I was. I looked back on my life and it felt like I was looking at someone that wasn't quite me, someone that was just kind of in this autopilot. And it was only when I got pushed all the way to the brink where I had terrible mental health, I had terrible issues with my relationships, that I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to do something about this. So I was just devouring like self-help books, psychology books, books about neurology, how the brain works. And it was in that moment I realized an even harsher truth than maybe anything I've said so far, and that is that essentially all human suffering is internal. But I already know some smart ass is gonna say, well, what about that country with the bombs and the war and the bad stuff? You're telling me that's all internal? Okay, clearly there are caveats to this. It is the majority of human suffering. It is the majority of your suffering because you are sitting here in some nice, probably air-conditioned room with a device with an internet connection. And studies have already proved that our bodies react to imagined experiences just as much as external experiences. For example, you ever think a dirty thought and your body starts to react a certain way? Nothing was actually happening, and yet your body reacted as if the thing was happening. They did a study on free throws where they had one group practice free throws on the basketball court, another group just imagine themselves practicing the free throws, and what they found is that both improved pretty much the same amount at shooting free throws. Meaning that when you are hyperreactive, it's not just exerting some kind of external reaction from you, but internal subconscious responses from you, programming your mind over time, causing a lot of negative emotions, negative feelings, negative outlooks on the world, which then influence your actions. And well, your life is just a series of actions you take, which is a series of decisions you made internally, which were all influenced by these negative forces. And these negative feedback loops operating inside you can literally cause illnesses because, like I said, your body can't tell what's internal and what's external, what's imagined and what's real. Therefore, your nervous system and your immune system is going to react negatively. There are lots of people who have gotten sick and stayed in sick states because of this, and through internal changes they made, undone their illnesses. Therefore, if you want to escape this sympathetic survival state that almost everyone is in, that causes most of the suffering in our life, that causes most people to never actualize their true potential, then you need to become non-reactive. You need to develop the skill of non-reactivity. So embarrassing to admit, but not too long ago, I fell into one of those reactive states for a few days. I was giving into distraction a little too often, checking Twitter a little too often. I was watching a lot of news content that would then trigger me and make me upset about the state of the world. And my mental state and productivity was just like this roller coaster. I was taking a lot of stimulants, then I would crash off these stimulants, and every day, and there was like this bubbling anxiety within me every day, just feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough. But realizing this, I started doing the protocol that I'm going to break down in this video, and within a matter of days, I remember I woke up and just felt clear. I wasn't thinking about yesterday. I wasn't stressed out about anything. I didn't have this feeling of weight or dread on me. I did my usual morning routine where I go up on the rooftop of my apartment and the sun was just hitting me, and I was listening to my audiobook and doing my stretches and walking around, and I was smiling, and I just felt like excited and happy for the day. And I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't thinking about the future, even the rest of the day. And I realized, oh, I'm back into this state of non-reactivity. I'm back into this present state. And my brain is getting back into the brain waves of alpha, which is the state in which you can unlock. Flow state is when you have this internally aimed energy and attention. It's when you're more creative, more relaxed, more intuitive, and life feels better. You feel in the moment. And it no longer feels like life is happening to you. It feels like you are happening to life. I then went back inside, did my meditation, and got into a deep flow session working, planning a video, which you're actually watching right now. And the past couple days have been probably the best of this month so far because I've been in an extended period of non-reactivity. So in this video, for the rest of this video, I'm going to break down the protocol to do exactly that. So you can be better in social situations. This will make you more attractive, especially for my guys. It is very attractive to a woman for you to be non-reactive because it means you are dominant. It means you are protective. It means you are in control of situations and you're not going to crash out with the wind changing or something. You're going to be a more positive person with this internally generated energy that just projects outward, and it feels honestly magnetic when you're around people like this. You're going to perform infinitely better in high stakes or stressful situations. You're going to be like the James Bond version of you, where no matter what life's throwing at you, you can just effortlessly, calm and collectively deal with it, handle it, find solutions. You're going to be able to slip into flow states seemingly effortlessly, which is like you took this limitless pill, and if you're an ambitious guy who wants to either maybe climb the ranks in a business, start your own business, this is going to aid you in doing so you can be more productive, do more work in less time, and of course, make more money, get more freedom, live a cooler life. But perhaps the most consequential is you're going to make better decisions. And like I was mentioning earlier, the life is just the sum of decisions that you have made. And by becoming non-reactive, you transform from this twig being ripped around by the river, by the current of the waters, to someone who can quite literally control the direction of the current itself. So here are the 5 things you can do to become non-reactive and put life entirely in your favor. So kind of like how athletes will go into the gym and train specific muscles for specific movements they do in their sport, if your sport is being non-reactive, you need to train the muscle of metacognition. Metacognition is basically thinking about thinking. Like imagine you're playing Mario and you're on a very hard level that you just can't beat. Instead of just playing it and being locked in on the screen, imagine if you could pull yourself into a third-person view and watch yourself play the game. You notice where you get frustrated, where you get stressed out, where you press the wrong buttons, where you make the wrong moves. That is like what it is to become metacognizant. It's where instead of being the character in the movie that is your life, you are able to pull yourself out and become the director. And what I found to be the only real way to train this muscle is through metacognition meditation. This is not the typical breathe in, breathe out basic bitch meditations that you'll see on most apps and most YouTube videos. Rather, it's when you're constantly regaining executive control over your mind, because no matter what, thoughts are going to appear. But what happens is thoughts appear, we are reactive, we react to the thought, usually by generating another thought, and we go down these spirals where we just spent 20 minutes in an imaginary argument with a coworker. But in this type of meditation, these thoughts appear, you develop the ability to just observe them, and they pass like a sound, like a bird flying by. But if you'd like to know the exact way to do this, you can check out my free 5-day meditation series in the description, or you can check out Conscious Catalyst, which is my full 30-day meditation protocol, which can take someone that's literally never meditated in their life to being able to slip into that state of pure meditation, non-reactivity. And the more you do these exercises, the more you are doing reps in the gym that is your mind. And you have to do that because you have to have a certain level of strength to be non-reactive in the outer world, not just with your own thoughts. But you can hit the gym all you want every day, yet if you are pounding Doritos and ice cream, it is going to make things very difficult. Therefore, on this path to non-reactivity, you need to reduce your stimuli. You need to destimulate. You simply cannot wake up, grab your phone, and start checking the news, start scrolling social media. It doesn't matter how mentally strong you think you are, those things are designed to overpower that. They are designed to be addictive. You need to reduce the amount of information you are getting. You don't need to be checking the political news. You don't need to be checking the wars every second of every day, let alone every day at all. You don't need to go watch that video about the new crazy business model that's making everyone rich that the guru that's trying to sell you a course is talking about. And you don't need to go on Instagram and see if the girl from your gym posted a bikini picture. Come on. And this may sound confusing, but when you begin to cut out external inputs, you then begin to create internal outputs, meaning you start to have better thoughts, better ideas, your work output gets better, like I mentioned earlier. And what's pretty shocking is you actually begin to realize a lot of that stuff you used to consume, you weren't actually enjoying it. You didn't actually want to do it. You had this addiction to the reaction that it gave you because our brains develop these addictions to emotions. Therefore, there's a lot of things you just do for the reaction itself. This was me with political content. I was consuming a lot of political content and it didn't help my life. It didn't help my work. It didn't help my relationships. It didn't help anything whatsoever, but I was addicted to, and it would trigger me and I would feel like, oh, I'm so right about these politics and these things with the world and everyone else is wrong and I'm so smart. I was addicted to getting mad at this politician or this political side of things, and honestly it was just the most NPC thing to do imaginable. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it's okay and maybe beneficial to understand where the world's at and things like that, check the news, whatever, but not on an often cadence. And honestly, if something big enough to affect your life happens, you're gonna know about it without checking Twitter. At least for an hour, be in this open state of awareness where you haven't ingested any stimuli, any information yet, and see what comes out of it. And then what happens over time is you begin to internally just kind of know what stimuli you should allow. For example, I cut out the political stuff. I was cooking dinner without listening to a YouTube video or a rant. I was driving without playing a podcast or crazy music or anything like that. And then I realized when it was time for me to consume something, I was opting for CEO podcasts, namely with people who have built these big e-com brands, because I am building an e-com brand for premium blue light blocking glasses 24th, link in the description. But let's be honest, life is life. Shit is going to happen externally that is out of your control and you are not planning for it to happen. It caught you by surprise. And while sometimes you may need to literally take actions in response to these things, you need to try and let it have as little effect on you internally as possible, both in terms of triggering your emotions and taking you out of the present moment, because you start to spiral thinking about this thing. And this is what I'm just going to call real life reps. Kind of like how with meditation, you have a thought pop up and you need to learn how to just observe it and detach and let it pass. In real life, things are going to happen that are much more intense than a thought internally, and you still need to get yourself back to that baseline as quickly as possible. And what this is called is resilience. When something happens to you and throws you off course, how quickly can you get back to the core? How quickly can you recenter yourself so you can operate from that non-reactive, mindful, alpha brain state? But luckily, these last two steps are things you can start doing today to help you with the real life stuff. The first one, hear me out, this may sound weird, but it is a breathing exercise that I call the big sip. So in your body, you have 7 plexuses. If you want to get woo-woo, this is also what people attribute to the chakras. I don't like calling them that. I think there's a lot of weird stuff going on over there. I just call them the plexus. So this breathing exercise is essentially directing energy, directing almost electricity from those lower 3 into those higher 4. And that may sound weird, but scientifically speaking, we are energy. We are electricity. There is constant electrical flow throughout our entire bodies. For example, if I were to touch something hot and then feel pain, I'm not actually feeling pain from the heat itself. The heat is not somehow in my brain triggering it. It is because the heat in my hand triggered an electrical signal that traveled all the way up my body into my brain and told me to feel the pain. It's also why, you could rub a balloon on yourself and pull the balloon away and your hair stands, because you have an electrical field. We have electrical fields around us at all times, just how humans are. If you want to dive into that, you can. Listen, let's focus on the breathing. So it's kind of like if you were a tube of toothpaste and you're trying to, wring out the toothpaste from the bottom and put it into the top of the toothpaste so you can, brush your teeth. So what you do is you focus all of your attention into that bottom plexus, into your no-no square, the private areas, your pelvic bowl. And then what you do is you squeeze those muscles and imagine as if you're breathing upwards all of that energy, all that electricity into your gut. And then you flex all your abdominal muscles, and it's like you're squeezing and breathing all of that upwards into your solar plexus. And then, you contract your lungs or constrict your lungs, one of those. You squeeze your lungs to pull it upwards into that top space where all of a sudden now the air is up into your heart and then up into your throat and then up into your brain. And you can even imagine it just when you exhale, breathing out the top of your head, even though it's not, you know what I mean? And this is not some gentle type thing. This is a violent, almost breath. You are trying to abruptly force this up, like you're trying to force out a bunch of toothpaste out of the tube. And you may have to start a little slow. It may feel weird. You may mess up, but I've been implementing these into my meditation sessions recently. And honestly, it is quite different. I notice that after I do that, the rest of my meditation, I am even more in a non-reactive state. I am even more mindful and present. And it's almost like you're pulling your brain out of your body, out of this primal body that just wants booby and food and dopamine. And you're pulling your brain back into your mind, back into your consciousness, and gaining that level of insight and awareness and, of course, control. But the last thing, which in your day-to-day life is going to be the most impactful, is this idea that sounds paradoxical, but it is remembering your future. If you truly want to change yourself, you need to reprogram your subconscious mind, and you do that by creating this new higher version, this higher identity, this ideal version of yourself, this image of it, this movie of it, in this future life you want, acting the way you want to truly be acting. You have this clear picture so that you now have a script, code that you can feed your subconscious mind and begin rewriting your own code to actually become that version of you. And And as I explained earlier, the brain and body can't tell if you're imagining something or actually experiencing it. This is why when you think of that awkward experience that happened to you 5 years ago, your body can clam up, tense up. You start to feel awkward right now, even though it's not happening. This is why most people say they have traumas that make them feel depressed or anxious, or, it's the source of all my suffering and why my life sucks is this trauma that I can't control. But it's not the trauma, it is the remembering of the trauma and letting those emotions come into the present. Therefore, once you create this clear vision of this higher version of yourself, you can remember that future just as much as you can remember the past. And what is that going to do? Well, it's going to cause your brain and your body to react as if the future happened, meaning that your subconscious is going to begin to change. Your body language, your posture is going to begin to change. Your autonomic nervous system will literally start to change to match this version of you. And what happens? You start acting more like that version of yourself. And as I've said in videos before, truly shifting your identity, truly reprogramming your subconscious will bring more change, more benefits throughout your life than relying on willpower, just trying to will your way, discipline your way there, ever would. So if you want to learn how to create this new identity, this higher self, and begin to reprogram your subconscious mind so you can be the version of yourself you want to be, so you can get rid of all those bad habits, insecurities, everything holding you back, and actually be that higher version of yourself, that magnetic, attractive version of yourself, click the video on the screen right now. I explain exactly how to do so. That's the video. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. Click it, click it, click it. Click this one right here. Thanks for watching. Love you. Bye-bye.